Welcome to the Bible Project. Have you ever broken a rule? Come on, be honest. Or maybe you've stolen candy from your mom's pantry, lied about your age to get into a movie, or shoved your sibling while playing. Now, what happened when you broke those rules? Maybe you got grounded, lost a privilege, or felt guilty. I mean, breaking rules has consequences. Well, picture this. You wake up one morning and suddenly there are no rules. What if there were no rules at all? Imagine a world where stealing was normal, lying was accepted, and even killing had no punishment. Scary, right? But believe it or not, thousands of years ago, people lived in a time where chaos and confusion ruled. And that's exactly why God stepped in and gave Moses something powerful, the 10 Commandments. But why Moses, and why those 10 rules? Today we re-diving into one of the most important questions in history. Why did God give Moses the 10 Commandments? And as you'll see, those 10 simple rules were never just about religion. They were about survival, freedom, and creating a new kind of nation. Let's rewind. The Israelites had just escaped slavery in Egypt. They had been slaves for over 400 years. Imagine it. Generations of people who only knew how to follow orders with no freedom, no laws of their own, and no sense of identity. Now, after the Red Sea miracle, they were free. But here's the problem. Freedom without guidance can lead to disaster. They didn't know how to govern themselves. They didn't have any laws or guidelines, so they were on the verge of falling into chaos. Now, enter Moses. You might know him as the guy who parted the Red Sea or led his people out of Egypt. But before he received those 10 famous rules, he was just a runaway prince, escaping his own royal mess. See, he'd killed an Egyptian guard after seeing another slave get mistreated. Then he fled into the desert, became a shepherd, and lived far away from civilization. But God had plans for Moses. One day, while tending his sheep, he saw something unusual, a bush on fire, yet it wasn't burning up. Intrigued, he went closer and heard God speaking to him. This wasn't any ordinary talking bush. It was a moment that changed history. God told Moses it was time to go back to Egypt and free the Israelites from slavery. To be honest, Moses wasn't thrilled at first. He hesitated, complained, and even asked God, "Who am I to go to Pharaoh and free your people?" But God reassured him, "I will be with you." So Moses returned to Egypt, confronted Pharaoh, and some pretty unbelievable things happened. Water turned to blood, frogs hopped everywhere, and plagues struck the land. Finally, Pharaoh let the Israelites go. And then, as if by magic, the Red Sea parted, and Moses led his people through on dry land. But let me tell you, the journey wasn't easy. The Israelites wandered around in the desert for 40 days and 40 nights, facing hunger, thirst, and doubt. During this time, they started grumbling, blaming Moses, and even thinking about going back to slavery in Egypt. So you can imagine the situation was a bit messy. Now, enter God again. He wanted to teach these folks a lesson about faith, obedience, and trust. He wanted to show them that he wasn't just the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but he was also the God of the whole universe. And that meant establishing order in their lives. And that's why he decided to give Moses the 10 Commandments. Now, imagine the scene. Mount Sinai, a massive mountain towering over the desert landscape. There was thunder, lightning, and a thick cloud covering the mountain. The sound of a trumpet so loud the people trembled in fear. God himself had come down in fire, and he called Moses up the mountain. When Moses reached the top, he saw something incredible, a bush on fire, yet it wasn't burning up. And as he approached, he heard God's voice saying, "You shall have no other gods before me." Whoa, it was the first of 10 rules, the first of 10 rules that would change history. Over the next 40 days, God spoke to Moses atop Mount Sinai, revealing the 10 Commandments, which he said were carved in stone. Together, they formed the foundation of a new way of life, a way of life based on love, justice, and a relationship with God. Now, you might be wondering, why do they call them the 10 Commandments? Why not 5, 10, or even 20? The truth is, the number 10 wasn't random. It was carefully chosen. You see, back in those days, people didn't have smartphones or the internet, so they relied on word of mouth and face-to-face conversations. They also used clay tablets and papyrus scrolls to record important stuff. The number 10 was significant because it was easy to remember. It helped the Israelites pass down the rules from one generation to the next. Plus, 10 was considered a complete number back then. It symbolized perfection and completeness. These commandments weren't just for priests or religious leaders. They applied to everyone. Whether you were a king or a commoner, everyone was expected to follow them. Now, it's important to note that these commandments weren't just about keeping people in line. They were about setting them free. Free from confusion, free from moral chaos, free from destroying themselves. So, why did God give Moses the 10 Commandments? Let's take a look at them. The first 4 were about God. They talked about worshiping only Him, honoring your parents, not taking God's name in vain, and remembering the Sabbath. The last 6 focused on people. They covered not stealing, not lying, not cheating, not killing, and honoring others. In short, these commandments provided guidance for every aspect of their lives, from the deepest spiritual matters to everyday interactions. They weren't just rules. They were a blueprint for peaceful coexistence, for harmonious relationships, and for a life well lived. Think about it. If everyone followed these 10 simple rules, wouldn't our world be a better place? Wouldn't families be stronger? Wouldn't communities be safer? Wouldn't life be simpler? As you probably already know, the 10 Commandments played a crucial role in shaping not just the Israelites, but the entire course of human history. After Moses came down the mountain with the commandments, he shared them with the Israelites. At first, they were a bit scared because these rules were strict and they were coming from God Himself. But over time, they understood that these commandments were given for their own good. They weren't meant to burden them. They were meant to set them free. Following these rules became the foundation of their faith and identity. It's like having a set of core values that guided their decisions, shaped their culture, and influenced their interactions with other nations. It's no wonder that even today, centuries later, the 10 Commandments are still relevant. They're a timeless guide to living a good and meaningful life. The story of the 10 Commandments teaches us that sometimes people need guidance, rules, and boundaries to thrive. It shows us that following rules isn't always bad. Sometimes it's necessary to maintain order, protect people, and ensure a better way of life. It also teaches us that true freedom comes not from doing whatever we want, but from living according to a higher purpose, a purpose that leads to peace, harmony, and a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. So, why did God give Moses the 10 Commandments? He gave them because His people needed more than escape from Egypt. They needed a guide for life, a foundation that still speaks to us today. Maybe the question we should ask isn't why God gave them, but are we living by them? Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Bible Project. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell for more engaging videos that bring the Bible to life. If you'd like to support us and our work, swing by our Bible Stories Explained channel for even more awesome videos. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the Bible.